hit the record button. Now we're good. And so I want to welcome new faces tonight. My name is Maya. I am a behavioral registered dietitian, the creator of the New Aria Method and the founder here at New Aria Health and Wellness. And very simply said, it is my biggest passion and mission in New Aria weight loss is one of the things that we do, as many of you know us for in New Aria Health and Wellness. Really our biggest mission and passion is to deliver one single message to you and really change the trajectory of how the world changes their health. And that is to know that how you think is just as important, if not more important, than what you do to achieve optimal health and healing. How you think is just as important. How you think habitually is just as important as the food you eat or don't eat, the exercise you do or don't do, or the supplements you do take or not take, the doctors you see or don't see. Your thought habit change, or how you think about your optimal health and wellness, is just as important, if not more, as all of those pieces. And when we combine and we add in the component of learning how to think for optimal health and healing, it changes everything. I've spent 14 years in this space, and we have dived deep into, you probably have seen a lot about New Aria weight loss. And if you know some of my story, I came from upwards of 200 pounds, and I grew up in a Lebanese household. Food was love. You know, if you didn't clean your plate, then you got like, you don't love me, you don't like my cooking. And so, you know, as a kid, I was a lot larger. And I had worked in the fashion industry for some time, and realized after I had moved out, I went from Cleveland, Ohio to St. Louis, Missouri, and realized that the size 2 jeans that I was selling to these women, you know, they didn't even fit up my thighs. So something was probably wrong at that point, and I should lose some weight. But I wasn't a dietitian, so I didn't know that the calories in, calories out game could really backfire on you. So I ate fat-free Oreos because they had 10 calories each, and as long as I over-exercised, it was really a mess. So I checked myself into dietitian school, and it was in school that we have a big problem right now. I'd never take back. I'm very happy to be a dietitian. I'm not a traditional dietitian, I would say, but we know what to do, right? If you're here, you know you're in the right place, especially to employ the tool that is learning how to think differently to achieve optimal health and wellness and well-being and healing. When you know that you know what to do and you're just not doing it. When you're meeting resistance, which is our topic tonight, that's how you know you're in the right place. Because I knew that an apple was healthier than a candy bar. I was taught that here's why an apple's healthier than a candy bar, but I still wasn't making that choice. So there's a fundamental issue that was happening there. How do we take, our health is shifting now in our world today. It is not about more knowledge. If knowledge was the magic key, which I was going to say magic pill, but if knowledge was the magic key, we would all be skinny, rich, and happy, right? We would all be all of the things that we already want to be if knowledge was all we needed. How do I take the knowledge I know and make it real in my life? And I need you to know, if you've heard me before, you've already heard me say that you are strong enough, you do have enough willpower, and it is possible. And you are not a failure. Oftentimes when we have many past experiences that have rendered failure or have shown us that maybe that wasn't the right way, when the brain only has access to past experience, then the brain will only say, well, you've been there, done that before. How do you know that that's ever going to work for you? So it can really, I don't like the word sabotage, but stop you from moving forward. So I'm going to keep drilling in your head that thinking is by far the most important tool to your health and healing. So after college, I had paralleled a lot of my studies with, psychology and cognitive behavioral therapy and neuroplasticity to understand how my brain works. And so I started coaching. I moved out to Phoenix, Arizona. I've been here, I think 11 or 12 years now, and started coaching on behavior change, just on, there's a mat in front of me, just on behavior change. And really taking, well, how do I strategically change behavior instead of changing 998 things about my life on Monday and falling into chocolate cake by Friday? How do I strategically do that? Now, here's the thing is, if I don't change, here's what I mean by this is, if back here in my thought habits, this is the New Aria method, is our thoughts create our emotions, which create our behaviors. If I don't change, say, all or nothing thinking, or perfectionism thinking, or overthinking, if I don't change my habituations and thought, that ultimately were leading to the stress and all the sugar. And now I decreased the sugar, but I never changed the original habituation and thinking. This is called the hamster wheel. And around I go. Because if I unstrategically use my willpower and I use my willpower up, the moment that old habituation and thought is triggered, well, around and around we go. Thought is the level of the cause, and behavior is only the symptom. Thought is the level of the cause, and behavior is only the symptom, rendering behavior change alone only symptom treatment, okay? That is why if you have been there, done that before, you're banging your head against a wall because it's only symptom treatment. You've only treated symptoms. By the way, New Aria Weight Loss Group, I have also been drilling this into your heads if you're on our email list. If you go to newaria.com, click on the weight loss tab, it's newaria.com/weight loss. Our group, it's one of our founders groups, so it is at a lower cost to get the group than ever before. It's only $200 a month for 6 months. That's it. Typically, it's about $250 a month. This founders group to get started with New Aria Weight Loss. There's a health coaching component, 3-phase dietary plan. There is your master workbook, which is everything. A New Aria mentor, the New Aria curriculum, and support groups. This quite literally, I don't think I have ever confidently sat in this chair that I'm sitting in or any other chair at any other point in my lifetime when I have served you. I've never sat in this chair more confidently than I can at this moment, because there has been 14 years of testing and measuring, not just the New Aria method, but now specifically for weight loss. And we're going to be moving into some other exciting areas, but I can confidently look you in the eye. I'm sorry, I can't look Instagram and Zoom and Facebook in the eye all at the same time, but I can confidently look you in the eye. We have our results are out of this world. So the majority of weight loss, typical weight loss programs, who I will not name, but are probably coming to your head at this very moment in time, tout 4 to 5% average weight loss in the first year. Our average weight loss over the past 3 years has now been 6.48% in the first 6 months. In addition to that, and we have Jacqueline, who is our Director of Enterprise Development, to thank for this, which, by the way, if you are in a corporation or company and want to bring New Aria Weight Loss in as your weight loss program, reach out to us, because she's your girl who will take care of you. And for every $1 that you put into the New Aria Weight Loss Program, we have measured and been able to give back to you $3.67 back. So for every buck that you put in, you'll get back $3.67 back in reduced metabolic risk factors, which is things like your blood pressure, your waist circumference, some of your lipid measurements, and also in reduced medications. That's huge. So the layout, the components of the program, I have tested and measured over 14 years specific components without other components. And this quite literally, I could call it the magic formula if I wanted to be silly right now with you, but the combination of the health coach component that corrects your deviations in weight loss and takes you down a 3-phase dietary plan, which is all at newaria.com/weight loss, is time tested. The second component is your New Aria mentor with the New Aria University, online courses, how to change a habit, how to think, how to feel. There is a workbook, where is it? Where did I? Oh, it's on the chair behind you. It's a 100-page workbook that combines all the processes all together and delivers it to you in 6 modules. And you can take your time through those 6 modules, but by the time you get to the 6 modules, you will have learned and practiced how to have your cake, eat your cake, and lose weight too. We've been posting a bunch of what's possible all over our social media, so feel free to check out all of the what's possible over the social media, because as I mentioned to you, it's really only our brain that says to you, I've done so many things before, how do I know that anything else is going to work? And I get that, I get it. There's so many failed past attempts that I've had in so many areas of my life in the past as well. And it really comes down to how sick and tired are you of being sick and tired? And I want your heart to hear for just a moment. I want your head to hear for just a moment that I get it. You've tried a lot of things, and you need to know that thinking is the most important tool. And when you employ the thinking, the effortless behavior change will follow. Sorry, I gave you a little bit longer of an introduction, but I got really excited. Our New Aria Weight Loss Founders Group, is starting next week. So go to the website and sign up right now. Don't hesitate. Don't overthink about it. If you overthink about it, you're going to overthink about everything. So don't hesitate. We're talking about resistance today. My intention for you this Wednesday and every Wednesday is singular in nature and simple. Just the way that I like to keep everything simple. Simple is to say awareness. That is my only intention for you every single Wednesday, is just increased level of awareness. And as we increase your level of awareness, as you increase your level of awareness, you've heard me say it before, awareness is like a light. When you flip a light switch on in a room and you can see everything. Because you can't change, not just a behavior if you don't know you're in a behavior, but you can't change a thought habit or a habituation in thinking if you don't know that you're not engaged in that thought pattern. And just like we brush our teeth, drive our shoes, I did this last week, drive a car, ride a bike, brush our teeth, tie our shoes. These are all habits. And habits are easy and effortless. We have habits just like it's easy and effortless to reach for sugar when I'm stressed out, or it is easy and effortless for me to go Harvard, go home, and be all or nothing about my behavior change or any changes that I want to make anywhere in my life. These are easy, effortless, automatic ways of thinking, okay? These are easy, they're thought habits. Easiest way to describe it is habits of thought. They're so simple that the moment when faced with something in your life, that thought habit that you have practiced and repracticed over and over again comes to serve in that moment. You don't think about, how should I think about this right now? That doesn't go through your head. You say whatever habituation and thinking is common for you, that's what comes to the table first. So the New Aria method simply says, which is going to be important in terms of resistance and how it impacts your health and what it is, because there's 3 levels of resistance, is in our thoughts, our habits of thought, our emotions, and our behaviors. We can experience resistance in all of those. And in New Aria, we teach you in all of those areas how to reduce that resistance. But first of all, now that we've set the intention for just turning on a light, I would love the light of awareness, but I'd love for you in the comment section, if you have any if you have any aha moments. They call them aha moments. Anything that's like, huh, I didn't think about it that way, or oh yeah, I need to pay attention to that. That is actually, when you have those moments, it's like your inner guidance system. It's yourself giving you the answer. So pay attention to that, because if you're not sure what is your next right move, that one right there, that whatever comes up for you, that's your next right move. So share those with us, because I'd love to hear about what comes up for you and what is going to be your next right move. It's always the question that I ask our level 2 students at the end of support group. So what is resistance? Resistance is just as it sounds. It's resisting something. You're resisting something. You're fighting something. You're resisting or fighting something. It is going to be very important that you begin to learn how resistance sounds, feels, and looks in your own life. It is going to be very important. You are going to get very good at correcting your own unwanted thought habits and emotional habits and physical behavior habits when you can get really good at how your own resistance sounds, feels, and looks like. Resistance in itself is a habit. Sometimes we get really, resisting things is a habit. It can be a habit. And if it's the first thing that comes to the table all of the time, then we're very good at resisting things. So you want to know that about yourself, is what does, and my intention for you, hopefully by the end of our little chat this evening, is that you'll know what resistance sounds like or feels like or looks like in the areas of those 3 habituations: your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. Because that right there is how you increase your awareness as to what needs to be changed. If resistance in some area comes up for you, you might have heard me say before, I always say, like, the only way to is through. You really only have 2 choices with fear. You're going to allow yourself, or habit, let's call it habit, because that might be too resistant full of a word for some people. You have 2 choices with a habit. You could be moved by your habit, or you can move through your habit. And you always want to choose the latter if you're here and you want to be here. So for your health, you're here and you want to be here. And this here can say, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to get rid of my diabetes. I don't want to be as stressed out as I am anymore. I don't want to be anxious anymore. And so any change, this is what's called change work. I'm here and I want to be here. And the most important key to your change work, which is what I've been communicating to you in terms of the New Arya methodology and weight loss, is that your thinking is key. When you change your thinking, you close the gap between where you're at and where you want to be. Your habitual thinking, the thinking that doesn't serve. If your thinking serves, you're already going to be here, and you don't need to change your thinking. Your habitual, regular thinking. So resistance says anytime that I am resisting something, right? This in my experience, and also in my experience for your experiences over 14 years with clients, one of the most frustrating, I think that's it, frustrating and maybe stressful, but potentially most frustrating. One of the most frustrating things is to be here and you want to be here and you know what to do to get there and you're just not doing it. You keep resisting it in some way. You got these things that says, well, you know, I really could be eating more apples and candy bars. I really could be going to sleep more. I really could be managing my stress more. I really could be eating less sugar. You know these things, but you're just not doing them. It is the most amount of overwhelm or frustration. It's very frustrating. And this is behavioral resistance. This is behavioral resistance. I'm resisting the behaviors that I need to take on. I'm resisting the behaviors that I need to take on. So essentially, I just gave you the first answer to the question of, in order to change, you must know how resistance looks, feels like, and sounds like to you individually. So if behavioral resistance, I'm doing these things and I know what to do and I'm just not doing them. I'm resisting, I'm fighting, I'm the things that I know I need to be doing and I'm just not doing. It's just resistance. It's just resistance. And that behavioral resistance, in my experience, feels a lot like frustration. So, you know, this is very important. You know when you're in a state of frustration. Frustration is your indicator that you're in resistance. And resistance is that it's the awareness. It says, what? I need to be going in this direction. I need to be going in this direction. I know what to do. I'm not doing it. I know what to do. I'm not doing it. Now, one of the things that we do to correct behavioral resistance in the very beginning is you learn a 5-step stepping stone methodology that uses the power of a habit loop. It's 5 steps to change a habit. It employs the power of the brain and action triggers to help you remember things. Uses the reticular activating system that says, I got to remember things through action triggers. But more importantly, it uses stepping stones. Stepping stones simply say, okay, if I have a lot of resistance to reducing sugar, you know I should be doing it, I'm just not doing it. Well, a stepping stone is this. And so what I can do is I can make a fat bomb. You're not going keto, but look up a fat bomb. It's a great way to help yourself off sugar without feeling deprived. I can reduce my sugar in some way. Everyone's at a different place. You know, you can replace it with different things like dates and nuts or fruit or something like that, where you can replace it with wherever you're at, you know, depending on where you're at, what level you're at, it's certain things may feel more resistful to you than others. And you learn to play with your level of resistance, because something's going to happen when you say, let's take an example of exercise. So if someone wants to, over here, they want to exercise 5 days a week for 30 minutes each, and over here, they're not doing it at all. And there's resistance and they're getting frustrated. So sometimes what they'll do is they'll exercise every day for 5 days for an hour each. And then come the weekend, they're back here, right? This is all or nothing, all or nothing. Go hard or go home. Be perfect at it or don't do it at all. Let me overthink my schedule or not overthink it and put it into auto drive. So what we want to do is ask yourself in that moment to find the correct stepping stone and reduce resistance to take the path of least resistance. Side note, we have it in our heads a lot of times that it's okay because it's a worldly repeated thought that I have to work hard to achieve things and I have to have some suffering in there and all of these other things when we actually don't. So what will happen in the brain when you work to find the path of least resistance, which behavioral work and thought work are both work, although sometimes the thought work doesn't seem like thought work, it's the real work. So when we will work to find the path of least resistance in the stepping stone, you play with the resistance level and say, okay, in the next 7 days, can I work out one day in the next 7 days for 30 minutes, and can I do that for the rest of my life? You're like, yeah. 2 days. Yeah. 3 days. Yeah, I could do that. And you'll watch people and you'll watch yourself, you'll feel yourself. Because there was, I was playing for you, I'm not a very good actress, but I was playing for you is to say, I could do 1 day, I can do 2 days, but you know what my brain did when I got to 3 days? It said, you know what? You really should be able to do 3 days, so just say yes. But there was hesitation there. There was resistance there. We don't know why, and we don't need to know why. But that's how you know what your next right move is, because it's taking the path of least resistance. Your path of least resistance step in your behavior is going to bump up against your shoulds. It's going to bump up against all of your other, that's your resistance. Your shoulds are your resistance, right? That's in your thought patterns. So ultimately, when we work to reduce the resistance in our behaviors, we just use a stepping stone methodology. And we checkpoint. We say, is that a should, or is that like just a yes without, and just a yes, a resounding yes, right? Yes. No, that's a no. So I'm looking at my notes. I took some notes for you because I actually skipped one of the things that I wanted to go over for you, but I think it's going to play into the most important piece. And that's answering the question of why do we resist? But let's talk about your thought resistance first, your thought resistance, and they're going to play into both and answer the question of why do we resist? When you, for those of you that are just joining, when you are, these are all recorded, by the way, so you can always watch the replays on Facebook and my YouTube channel. So resistance, knowing our own resistance is crucial to our optimal health and well-being, where it is that we want to go. Because if we know our resistance, if we pay attention to what it sounds like and what it feels like and what it is, then we can navigate through it and we won't fight so much. We'll take the path of least resistance to our best health. If we're continuously taking the most resistantful path because we think we should, or because we think we're defining the how this has to happen, there is no other way for this to happen. One of the most detrimental beliefs in this work is to believe it's not possible, which limits your ability to know how. Well, I don't know how. That's a resistance. Oftentimes when new work comes to you like this, well, how do you do that? How? That's just your resistance talking, because you don't have to know how, but your part of us wants to stay exactly where we were in our safe little bubble. And then if we don't know how, then let's just stay in the safe little bubble because we don't know how and it doesn't make sense to us. It's just a protective mechanism, which is why we resist, right? It's like if I grew up in a house, my whole life I lived in a house, and I wanted to walk outside of the house because I wanted to experience sunshine, but the brain would say, there's tigers and bears outside of the house, and you die, you'd stay in the house as much as you wanted to go out of the house, knowing that out of the house was good for you. Same thing here. It's the reason that oftentimes when we start changing our relationship to resistance and we start feeling better in the beginning is foreign, calm, peace, that's foreign in the beginning. If my whole life I've eaten candy bars and I knew that an apple was good for me, and you know, an apple might kill me. I know what candy bars are, but I don't know what an apple is. And so the same thing is happening here. You're resisting things on the level of thought and behavior and even emotion. You're simply resisting things because it doesn't feel safe. It's outside of your habit. Your habits are habits for a reason. and they keep you in the space and place that you're in, no matter how badly you want to change. And those habits come in three forms: your thoughts, your emotions, and your behaviors. All three of those forms create your current circumstance, or life circumstance, as we say. And if you move out of that life circumstance, it's not going to be comfortable. It's just not going to be comfortable. And that's what resistance is in a picture, in a hand form picture, is here's my habits of thought, emotion, and behavior. And if I move outside of that, well, oh, that's resistance. That's I'm pushing it. That's too far outside of the bubble. We're not going to do that, right? So we're gonna stay right here. We're gonna stay right here. Anytime that you want to move out and achieve something else, like your whole health and well-being, and achieving it in a totally different way, then there's going to be a resistance, because I don't know what's outside of the house. I don't know that an apple isn't going to kill me. I don't know peace and calm, but I know stress. So let me just stay with that. So that's where the good stuff comes in, because now we have to move. You've heard this before. It's nothing new. You move outside of the comfort zone, and as you move outside of the comfort zone, you experience resistance. That's how you know your resistance. When you know how it sounds and how it feels and what it's like, it's actually something to celebrate. When you experience resistance, it's something to celebrate, because it means that you're moving in a direction that you haven't necessarily moved before. That maybe you're moving outside of your comfort zone, or maybe you're going the wrong way, right? It's going to give us both of those directions, but you don't really know, because your brain is saying that, oh, you're moving outside of your comfort zone. It's not the right way. It's not the right way to go. Your resistance is there to simply guide you. And we have to know the difference between our thinking, our habitual thinking. When is my resistance just trying to keep me safe in my habitual thinking, versus when am I expanding and growing and pushing past my limits? There's a difference there. When is my thinking, or and it shows up as resistance, that fighting, that like, no, let me just go back to what I normally do. There's a difference between when it's trying to keep me safe versus when I'm expanding, outside of my comfort zone. And this is all done. This is what you're going to experience through thought habit change. And you can reduce your resistance. Take the path of least resistance, right? You always want to take the path of least resistance. When you take the path of least resistance, and not saying that you want to stay in this zone, right? It sounds slightly contradictory, but there's two different types. So you don't want to stay in the comfort zone. You meet resistance when you want to pop out. So there's certainly a healthy level of change and discomfort, but at the same time, resistance is where I might be fighting something. Resistance is that level where I might be fighting something, or it potentially is not the right way for me to go. Resistance can also be an emotion that's an experience telling us we're not going in the right direction, which is actually in our How to Feel course, which is in a much deeper aspect of the program that I will put to the side for this moment. So we'll stick with the baseline fighting level of resistance, because for those of you who are in an active student with us, you know that we move in the direction of what feels good. Because that's a whole different guidance system. But for those of you who are just joining us, know that your resistance is a part of the process, and we become friends with it, and we have to learn and navigate and understand that it's a whole different language, and that we want to take the path of least resistance so we feel more peace and calm and stop fighting things so much. Because when we do that, then we just take a stepping stone approach with our behavior resistance, or our thought resistance. When we experience thought resistance, what is that? That's remember, there's our thought habit change, our emotional habit change, and our behavior change. So there's 3 areas of change, and we can experience resistance in all of those. Simple behavior change. I should be eating less sugar, going to bed earlier, or exercising, whatever those things are. You can feel resistance in not wanting to do them, because you're busting out of your bubble. You're busting out of what feels safe, right? And you know that moving through that, but taking the path of least resistance, is going to get you there instead of fighting to get there. Take the path of least resistance using your stepping stones. Thought resistance often happens when, how do I share this with you that's not too, like, so in the Noria, university and right education, you learn how to think differently. How do I change the habituations in thinking that I've experienced my whole life? So common habituations of thought are things like all or nothing thinking, catastrophic thinking, obsessive thinking, overthinking, trying to control things we can't control, telling stories that aren't necessarily true. These are all habits of thought. And thought creates emotion on some level. So thought creates emotion. If I'm always overthinking things, or I'm always trying to control things in the future that I can't control, that's going to produce a lot of stress and anxiety. Whereas if my thoughts predominantly exist in the past, reminiscing about things that I should have done differently, et cetera, and so on, those thoughts produce depression. Whereas thoughts that stay here and now, slowed down thoughts where things are here right now, that's peace and calm because of this mode. So if I'm here and I want to be here, and I know that, well, I've reduced my sugar, and every time I reduce my sugar, every time I have stress in my life, I go straight back to the sugar. It's the easiest example I can give you. You change 998 things about your life on Monday, you fall in chocolate cake by Friday, the stress happens and you go right back to the chocolate cake, right? Or right back to all the sugar. There's all or nothing thinking. It's a habit of thought that is ultimately driving this behavior. The habit of thought of all or nothing thinking is driving this behavior. So the first thing that I said to you when we joined together this evening is to say thought, this is a perfect example in health, is thought is the level of the cause and behavior is the level of the symptom. Thought is the cause, behavior is the symptom. And for up until now, potentially, if you were like me, we just change behavior, and then we bang our head against a wall when behavior change doesn't work anymore. And you start to think to yourself, what's the matter with me? What's wrong with me? Why? Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe I don't have enough willpower. Maybe I'm a failure. Maybe it's not possible. When in actuality, it's just your thinking that needs changed. Because it's the all or nothing thinking that is driving the behavior in the first place. So let's put down the behavior change for a second and just focus on the thought. Now we can experience resistance in our thinking as well as we can experience resistance in our behavior change. How does that happen? We can experience resistance in our thinking when we're repetitively thinking in the same way and we want to start breaking outside of that little box. So if I'm over here and there's a 3-step formula, and there's a how to think course and a 3-step formula called thought redirection that we teach you that says that all or nothing thought is not serving this. Now, I'm giving you overviews is, if you're a dentist or certain jobs that you do, like it does have to be, it's right or wrong. Like you're not gonna, well, the tooth was so-so, right? It was okay. You're not going to do that with some of us in our jobs. It is going to be black or white. It is going to be right or wrong. It is going to be all or nothing. It's going to be, we want it done and we want it done all the way. But when we take that approach and put it in our food, it never serves. It never serves, especially when we need to take the path of least resistance and we can't use logic to take us where we want to go. So we meet thought resistance when we start the path and the journey of thought redirection, meaning I am going to redirect my thoughts, but I don't believe them. I'm hesitating because there's a tool we use in the How to Think course called evidence journaling. Evidence journaling is a really powerful tool that says, as I take myself through this 3-step process of thought redirection and start learning how to change my thinking, sometimes if I choose a better feeling thought, which is what we do, really when you think a thought that doesn't serve you, you want to ask yourself the question, how can I see this differently? Or how can I feel better about this? How can I see this differently? Or how can I feel better about this? And oftentimes when you redirect a thought in the very beginning, you're not going to believe yourself. Especially, you may believe yourself, but sometimes that redirected thought is like, absolutely not. That's never happened to me before. Let me give you an example. What would be a good example? Success. Success is a big one. Success in the journey. So say someone will stay on weight loss, but say someone eats food, of some food that's maybe off plan, whatever. They eat the sugar. And so when they eat the sugar, there's literally, it has nothing to do with the sugar I just ate off plan. Nothing to do with the sugar I just ate off plan. The very next move is what's going to happen, is what's going to determine what's going to happen next. When I eat the sugar, then I think. When I eat the sugar, then I think. And I have two thinking options. Well, you have 70,000 because you have 70,000 thoughts in your head. You have two thinking options. One, well, screw that up again. I may as well just eat everything in my house right now and I'll start again on Monday. Or I had a piece of cake, right? I had a piece of cake. Okay, it was delicious. Moving on, right? So it's not about the cake. It's not about the sugar. It's about what your next thought is. And it's in choosing that thought that makes all the difference in how you're going to move forward. But it's habit to choose this thought and not this thought. In fact, it is very common that this thought, you actually have to strategize in your head. You've never even thought this thought. Well, maybe you have, but it hasn't been common, habitual, reactionary, effortless. You never thought this thought, but you've thought this one. Super easy, just comes right to your brain. It's like brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, comes right to your brain. So I got to redirect my thinking to this thought over here. Now, sometimes that thinking comes with the, I can't do this. I can't do this. I always fail. This is just more evidence in my life that I always fail, that it just never works. Maybe I may as well just start, even if this is my thought, well, I'm going to eat everything in the house now. Even if you redirect it to, no, it was just a piece of cake. The brain says, no, you really did screw up. No, let's just eat everything, right? You'll play this little ping pong game. And oftentimes the brain will say, you've done this before. What's the point in trying? You'd never succeed. And so in the new thought that we want to adopt, here's where our resistance comes in. Our resistance comes in because we want to adopt a new thought. We want to adopt a better feeling thought, one that serves where we want to go. But we're moving outside of our box, and that's resistantful. You're just going to want to pull it back in, rein it back in, be normal, be your normal, be your current story. Don't you dare try and change your story. Don't you dare try and change your current life circumstance. You're not dead. You're fine. So we try and move that, and we try and change that. And so as we change that thought pattern, evidence journaling is how, I don't like the word combat, is very resistantful, very fighting. Words have resistance, by the way, too, right? If I say God, if I say heart, if I say, I don't know, Republican, if I say Donald Trump, right? All of these things have resistance to them depending on where you come from. So words have resistance too. So it's very important to know this, that at Nuaria, we choose our words carefully. In fact, not only do we choose our words carefully, we often adopt your own words. Because when we can come from a place of neutrality in words, then that allows the space for you to take on the path of least resistance. Maybe that's the most important component here, is for you to always take the path of least resistance after you know what your resistance is. So evidence journaling, are you following me? Evidence journaling is when we go to redirect that thought, but I don't believe that thought. You always fail, right? No, but I don't always fail. That's the new thought. I want to think the thought that says, I am always on the path. I am always on the path. There's something important that I make very clear on day one to everybody that simply says, you're here and you want to be here. It is a test, measure, course correct. Implement, test, measure, course correct. Implement, test, measure, course correct. There's never one right way. There is never one right way. In fact, you're the only one that has the one right way. But you got to learn how to think responsibly in order to get there. So it's a test, measure, course correct methodology that says, I will get there. I will get there. So when you go to adopt a new way of thinking that says you'll never get there because you've never got there before, okay, well, I'm trying this program out. This Maya girl from Nuaria is over here saying that my thinking is the most important thing for my health and healing. And I've tried it all, so I may as well try thought change. So when you use evidence journaling helps to combat the resistance around your thinking change, because it helps to gather evidence in the direction for the desired new thought. Evidence journaling, for those of you in the program or thinking about the program, New Aria Weight Loss group that's enrolling now, you will learn this. I highly recommend that you join us. For those of you who don't need weight loss, we have more really cool things coming out, so make sure that you join our mailing list. When we take that path of least resistance, evidence journaling simply helps us to cultivate and look for all of the evidence that holds true the new thought. I did do well. I'm not a failure. I'm actually doing well and succeeding. I don't believe that yet. My head doesn't believe that yet. My head doesn't believe that yet. My head still thinks that I'm not going in the right direction and this isn't working, right? That's my habitual thought, but it's not serving you. It's a highly irresponsible thought. Sometimes we think that we're not being responsible with our behaviors when you're doing everything that you can. Where we're really being most irresponsible, 99% of the time, is in our thinking. But when you pay attention to your habitual thinking and change that, you are taking on the utmost level of responsibility, because your behavior change will become effortless and follow thought, which makes thought most important. So your evidence journaling simply says, the new thought I want to adopt is going to be, everything works, it's working well, everything's going well, everything's moving in the direction I want it to go. You take a little notebook, your It's Possible notebook from New Aria, shameless plug, and you write down at night all the ways in which my life worked today, or all the ways in which I succeeded today, or all the ways in which I, whatever, fill in the blank today, right? And you write evidence every day. You have to find 3 to 5 pieces of evidence that supports that statement, because it's there. But what the brain does is it puts on blinders. This is part of your brain training and how to think. It puts on blinders and says, I'm going to hold true whatever you believe to be true. I'm going to hold true whatever you believe to be true. And that's what information is going to come in. There's something called the reticular activating system in the brain. I'm going to hold true whatever you believe to be true, and I'm going to allow that information now in. It's the reason you go on Facebook and you see on Facebook, you see like just lines of stories and photos and posts and all of these other things. And you only take in the information that's agreeable with you. You only take in the information that you agree with, because your reticular activating system is at work holding true whatever you believe to be true. Now you're going to put on blinders, and you're going to look at all of the evidence in your world of all the stuff that you want to hold true. That's what evidence journaling is. That was a lesson that I did not plan on going into with you today, but that's what evidence journaling does, and that's how we ex-nay the resistance in thinking. That's how we get rid of it in our thinking. We slowly and gently change our thoughts. We don't try and wrestle our old thoughts down to the ground. We don't try to beat them into submission. We don't try to wish they weren't there or hate them. We simply let them be and pay more attention to desired thought over unwanted habitual thought that is no longer serving where I want to go. Your current life circumstance, if you really look around, I do this on a regular basis. By no means am I perfect, but it's why it's completely selfish of me to have invented the New Aria method, because I wanted a better way for my life. So there's not one thing I'm teaching you here that has not been tried and tested through my own self to lose weight, end my diabetes, eliminate my anxiety and depression, get me off the medications and where I am today, because I just wanted a better way. And you take a look at your life circumstance right now, and your life circumstance will tell you exactly where you're at. It'll tell you exactly your life circumstance right now, whether if it's your weight or a disease state that you're going through. It's a product of your thought habits, emotional habits, and behavioral habits. But know this, those are changeable. Just because you've tried to change the behavior habits before doesn't mean that we can't change our thinking. So the last place that our resistance exists is, I haven't moved over to Facebook, but, hi Gail, I met you in the park and that was the aha moment, and joining your group. Joining your group was my move. That's fantastic. Yes, it was. It was Gail's right next move, and I encourage all of you to have that as your next right move, which we have one more level of resistance to talk about, and I have just a few minutes left. So make sure you head over to nuaria.com/weight loss. It is a 14-year proven methodology and program that has been tried and tested and proven. The results are out of this world. It is there's no other weight loss program, that can tout the percentage weight loss that we can. No other weight loss program that can tout the return on investment in the way that we can in reducing medications and reducing metabolic risk factors. Parallel, hands down, is the best. Yes, I'm sure that there's some bias in that because it's coming from me, but that's why the proven and measurable results are in place. And that's what we want for you. So join us. Go to nuaria.com/weight loss. The founders group is joining right now. We're going to have a group ongoing forever, but the founders group gets a nice little discount in the cost and the investment of the program. So if you're thinking about it, don't hesitate. Just don't overthink it. Don't go into the land of I've done it all. Just go there, sign up, and join us. And I look forward to working with you. You'll have many people on your team, in fact. The last piece is where I'm going to be on your team, and that is in emotional resistance. Now, I could go on for hours about this, and I won't because it's in the whole course in the New Aria education. But the point is I'm sorry, I'm doing a lot. I really am not meaning to do that purposefully. It's working out so well. I don't mean to be a pain in the butt plugging like the New Aria program and the courses and everything like that. It's how my brain works, and I'm going back to that all the time. So by no means am I trying to be a pain in the butt. I truly want to share this information with you because empowering you with this awareness level is amazing and wonderful, and that's what I want for you. If you do feel compelled, we're always here to help. Emotional resistance is oftentimes what happens is, well, let's back up for a second. Our thoughts create our emotions. Our thoughts create our emotions. And so as our thoughts are creating our emotions, there's some deeper level emotions that have been with many of us for some time. That's guilt and that shame and all of those components. And really, even if it's daily stress, we've got a really great way of taking a rug and just sweeping it right under the rug. That's what we do. We just sweep it right under the rug, right? And next thing you know, you've got this rug that is 10 miles high, and your house, the rest of your house is all nice and neat. And you're like, what rug? I don't see any rug. I don't see any stuff under that rug. Emotional resistance is really not feeling and not allowing them to pass through. As you go deeper into your journey, you like that? I was about to say the New Aria weight loss program with us. As you move further into your journey, what will happen is that you will learn that one of the foundational components that you learn right off the bat is you're not your thoughts. But as you progress further, you learn something very important, that you're not your emotions and you're not even your body. That's a whole nother, that's like level 2 mind blown work. But you're not your thoughts, you're not your emotions, but you're also not your body. You know, which lends to the question of who am I? But we answer that later on. You answer that. I can't answer that for you. The emotions. Emotions, like look at a kid, like look at a little child, right? I recently became a first-time aunt, and you watch them, like there's tears and then there's joy and then there's, she's not old enough to laugh yet, but there's all this mix of emotion. It just passes right through, right? Emotions are passing through our experience, but oftentimes we wrestle them down to the ground and we don't allow them to pass by because we think they shouldn't be there, right? Remember the shoulds? It's more resistance. And so we hold on to them and we hold on to them and we don't let them pass. If you've been through traumatic experiences in your life, which many of us have because trauma comes in many different forms, then this is very common. It's going to be very important as well to know that emotional resistance, there's something we teach you called emotional addiction, because if you think a thought over and over, thoughts produce chemicals, and those chemicals produce an emotional response in the body. So you can quite literally be priming your body for the chemicals of stress or anxiety or depression. And it's very easy and effortless to feel those things without even realizing that you're there. And next thing you know, sometimes it's 3 days, 7 days, a year later, and you're still in that same place emotionally. So emotional resistance, to combat emotional resistance, simply said, is something that we teach you in our support groups called acceptance, radical acceptance. It's one of the deeper levels of the first part of the level of education that we work with you on. So I'll place that right there because there's much more to say, but it's a big component to our work. Acceptance of what is, acceptance of what was, and acceptance of not knowing what will be is a really good place to work on, a good thing to work on. When we look at resistance in our health, just as a recap, there's 3 areas of resistance we can experience. Behaviors, which we combat through stepping stones. We take the path of least resistance. Resistance is felt in thought. When we try and, when we work, we don't try it. I get that's a different word, but when we work to adopt a new paradigm of thinking, a new thought habit, when we work to adopt that, we bump up against our deeper paradigms that drive everyday thought. So we combat that through evidence journaling in your reticular activating system. And eventually, the resistance that you experience in emotion, we combat through acceptance, self-compassion, and self-love. And through these components, you learn to think differently, and you cultivate health and healing in a way that has never been done for you before, through little and effortless behavior change, because you're taking the path of least resistance. You're hearing resistance. You're knowing what your resistance is. You're knowing what it sounds like. You're knowing what it says. And when you understand and have an awareness for, this is resistance point for me. How am I going to do this differently? How I'm going to feel about it, how I'm going to think about it, how I'm going to do it differently, to take the path of least resistance and to simply allow. Allowing is the opposite of resisting. Allowing is the opposite of resisting. Maybe you've heard this before, maybe you haven't. Maybe these words are coming with more resistance for you, and that's okay too. The state of allowing is the opposite state of resisting. And if we're resisting all of the time and not even knowing it, it is very stressful on the body. And stress is the ultimate cause of disease and weight gain on the body. Resistance in itself is a form of stress. There are 4 areas of stress that we work with and help you. My initial habit is to always say eliminate, but sometimes that's resistful for people too. Yes, I believe your stress can be eliminated. There's 4 areas of stress: is our behavior stress, our thought stress, our emotional stress, and then our U stress, Y-O-U stress, which simply means there is much stress to be had in living a life that is outside of alignment with your values and who you know that you truly are. When we're living a life outside of our potential and our values, that is very stressful. That's that U stress. So we correct all 4 areas through level 1 and level 2 education. The Noria Weight Loss Program addresses the first 3, the thought, the behavior, emotion, and thought. And the resistance that we experience in all 3 of these areas is stress. It's stressful. Frustration is stressful. Moving outside of our comfort zone and creating new habits is stressful. And so when we can do that for ourselves, when we can recognize our resistance, transform our resistance through the use of stepping stones for behavior, evidence journaling for thought, and acceptance for emotion, which you learn all of. When you can use those tools to transform, eliminate, and get rid of the resistance, you eliminate the extra stressors. And as we know, stress on the body is the most important component when it comes to disease and weight gain. So that is how resistance directly impacts your health. Does it make sense? I always, every single week, I really mean to keep it at 30 minutes. I do it every week. I'm sorry. Maybe next week will be 30 minutes. So for those of you who just joined, this is, I'll leave out in passing for you this evening, and just make one quick last note. I'd love to hear from you. Put in the comment section, what's your one next best move? That's what I want to know, is what is your one next best move for your health and healing? That's what I want to know. It's always the next right place to go. So just put it in the comment section wherever you're at, on Instagram, Facebook, or Zoom. And I'll leave with this. We are starting next week. For those of you who just joined, I want to remind you, if we have not met before, my name is Maya. And I want to remind you that next week we start the New Aria Weight Loss Group Program. It is the Founders Group Program. The biggest difference in our mission and vision that we see here at New Aria is singular in nature, and by far the most important is that you may have addressed behavior to change your health. You may have addressed your supplements and your food and your exercise, but what you need to understand is that thought is just as important, if not more, in the changing of your health and your healing. When you change your thoughts, when you change how you think habitually, and know that changing how you think habitually is just as important as the food you put in your mouth, the exercise you do, and the supplements you take, that will bring you to health and healing. Oftentimes when you experience a lot of resistance of I know what I should be doing, I'm just not doing it. I'm an all or nothing thinker, I'm a perfectionist thinker, I'm an overthinker, I'm stressed out, I'm frustrated, I carry so much shame or guilt with me, or I'm always depressed. It's all resistance. And all of that resistance is decreased when you learn how to think differently. It's a new component. You don't have to push so hard. The opposite of resistance is allowing, which we ended on this evening. And when you know how to use that, when you know how to use these tools in stepping stones for behavior, evidence journaling for thought resistance, and acceptance for emotional resistance, it reduces all of those. And quite literally, you're closing the gap between where you're at and where you want to be, and changing your health through thought. When you learn to change your health through thought and know that thought is the most important component of it all, of the entire equation, you will experience effortlessness in your behavior change. So head to newaria.com, click on the weight loss page, and if this is something that you have been wanting to join us for weight loss, then I highly suggest you get in the Founders Group that is starting next week. I'm talking faster because Instagram is giving me a countdown. It was fantastic to see everyone this evening. I will see you right back here next Wednesday. I'll try to keep it to 30 minutes, and I'll try to hopefully keep it at like maybe an easier topic or something. I hope this was helpful for you tonight. I love you all. I wish you the best, and I hope that this was impactful for you in some way, gave you some new level of awareness, because that is the singular most biggest intention that is going to transform where you're currently at. Have a great night, guys.